the What It Takes Radio Company, connecting you with your audience. Our lesson for today: the world needs to hear your story. So let's help you learn how to be a world-class podcaster. And good for you. You're thinking of being just that, a world-class podcaster. So let's talk about that.
Greetings, my name is Stan Houston, and I welcome you to this coaching experience, which we call How to Be a World-Class Podcaster. Well, let me tell you a little bit about what this is going to be about, and I hope that you will continue. Well, I obviously assume that you have an interest in podcasting. You may even want to be a podcaster. But before you do that, you want to find out a little bit about it and what's it all about, what's going on with podcasting. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to help you through a series of about 7 different episodes. We call them that, kind of 7 different lessons. We're going to get you started so that you can decide to be a world-class podcaster, and you can start to do just that, and then we'll be with you to help you become all of that. Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself, because what you will discover is that, in effect, radio is not just talking into a microphone to everybody out there. Good radio is when 2 people, me and you. I tell people that good radio, good podcasting, is you talking to one person. Think of it that way. It is you having a conversation, not a lecture, not a speech, not a rant, not some formal business presentation, not a speech or seminar even. It's a conversation, a connection, in which 2 people get to know something about each other, but they also learn something that's helpful and useful, fun and entertaining, something that makes their life just a little bit better, because the 2 of you came together. Even though you may be many miles apart and may have never met and may never ever meet, you have a relationship, perhaps even a friendship. So, first of all, my story, very simple. I've always loved radio. My mother says that she caught me one time climbing up on the counter trying to look inside the radio, and when she grabbed me, she said, "Stanley Paul, what are you doing?" And I said, "I want to see the people in the radio." Well, obviously I heard some voices. There must be little people in there. I loved radio all through high school and listened to radio all the time. Shortwave radio, I listened to radio as much as I could, and I built radio transmitters and receivers, and I was a ham radio operator. I kind of lost interest in it when I went to college as I got involved there. And our college didn't have any radio programming, so I majored in history, which is one of my other major interests, and decided I'd like to be a teacher because I enjoyed history. And so I did. And I also met a young woman who I married, and we went off and started our life together. And so I was a teacher, and she was the mother of our 2 wonderful children, and she also had a fine career for a major retail organization. But around in my early 30s, I decided that I wanted to make a change in life, and I wanted to live a little bit bold and different rather than doing the same old thing. Even though I loved teaching, I didn't think I wanted to do that for another 40 years. And so I went back to my first love, radio. And I went and talked to some people who could teach me how to be a radio person, and that was the start of it. So I taught school during the day, and till late at night, I would go to night school and learn how to be on the radio. Eventually, it turns out that I had the opportunity to serve in a volunteer, but a very important position, doing radio all around the world. BBC, Transworld Radio, Radio Netherlands, and I did that for a number of years, and my family was with me. When we finished doing that, I was a business performance coach, coaching people all the time in how to be successful in their business. But what I did is, oftentimes, instead of sending them a memo, I would sit down and actually make a personal little radio program, put it on cassette, and give it to them as a way of keeping in touch with my customers and clients. I did podcasting as a hobby. That's what I did as a hobby. Because it was a hobby for many, many years. It was just that. It was just a few strange people who would put these things on the internet and share them with a few people. In the last few years, it has exploded thanks to the great increase in broadband and in the internet. Podcasting is now not only a business, it is also an industry. And there are thousands, millions of people involved in podcasting, and there are people all over the world, millions upon millions of people who no longer listen to the traditional radio for all their information and entertainment and whatever they're looking for in life. They listen to podcasts. I produce podcasts. I've produced a number of them. I help many, many other people. My company's called What It Takes Radio, and we're doing everything we can to help help do for you, and do with you what it takes to get you on the radio as a podcaster. That's what we do, and we do it well. And so this is part of our service to you, is to begin to teach you what you need to do just that, become a world-class podcaster. Now, first of all, the questions that you're going to have, I can probably anticipate, so can I try? First of all, some of you are going to say, well, Stan, what is podcasting all about? Well, let's go back to the thing we're familiar with, the radio. Well, the radio changed the world when it first was kind of invented in 1920, and people could actually have a radio, and there were actually people who had radio transmitters, and they built towers, and they would broadcast the radio waves into the air, and people would have their antennas on their radio, and they could listen to them. And radio grew by leaps and bounds. It was the thing, and homes struggled to have enough money to have one little countertop radio, or if they were fortunate enough, they could actually buy one of the big ones that had better sound, and they would all listen to it just around the radio, like people would listen and watch the television in years to come. And so it grew and became a mighty industry. And of course, they finally made it possible for you could put a radio in an automobile. And actually today, most people listen to radio not by sitting around and listening to it. They may have it somewhere, but most people listen to the radio when they're in their automobile now. And that's changing too. Well, that has gone very well, but what happened was that radio is very expensive. It costs a lot of money to build a radio station and to have all of that equipment and all of that electricity and those huge towers that go into the air. And so the radio station guy, the owner of that, they have to make money, and so advertising and sponsors and commercials were born for radio, and of course later on for television, which of course is just simply radio with pictures. And so that's the story that you're totally familiar with. However, a few years ago, just really a short time in history, a guy named Steve Jobs, ever heard of him? Who was the inventor of the Apple computer and the head of the Apple Computer Company, decided that he didn't like the way he had to listen to the radio to hear his music. He said, wouldn't it be nice if I could just listen to the music that I wanted to, when I want to, and wherever? And so he invented the first Apple iPod. And many of you know what it was. It's very similar to your smartphone, in case you never had one. It was somewhat like the Walkman, which was a little bit bulkier, like a brick, but you had to have a cassette, and you bought a cassette, and you put the cassette in, and then you could carry it around, and you had headphones, and you could listen to the music on the cassette. But that was also very, very popular, but the iPod was even more popular because it could fit in your hand, it could fit in your pocket, and you could put not just one cassette into it, you could put hundreds, thousands of your favorite songs, just the ones you wanted. And you could listen to it anytime, wherever you were. And so the word iPod meant independent, individual, personal on demand. And it changed the world. It changed the music industry. People no longer bought records or CDs. Those stores vanished. They're gone. And now people listen to music online, or they download the song and put it on their computer or put it on their smartphone. They would do that and put it on their iPod. And so everybody could, wherever they were, they could have their favorite songs and they could listen only to the songs they wanted to listen to. They didn't have to wait for the disc jockey to decide to play their song. They could do it whenever they wanted. They didn't have to wait for it to be played. They could play it 10 times, 20 times, over and over and over. And it was anywhere they could go that they had their iPod in their hand. Independent, individual, personal, on demand. And of course, it changed the world, and most of you live with that right now. Well, radio became the same thing. People said, well, if you can listen to music that way, and most music we hear on the radio, would it be possible for us to have regular radio programs? And of course, that's what podcasting means. Personal on-demand broadcasting. When I first saw the first iPad, I was a little bit suspicious about the idea. But I was on a flight one time, and the guy next to me had an iPad. I finally looked at it. I said, how does that work? And he showed me how the iPad worked. And I all of a sudden got up. I immediately ran to a radio station, to the phone, and called the radio station that I did some part-time work for and said, we got to get with it. This iPad is going to revolutionize radio. People are going to be able to carry an entire radio station with them in their hand, in their briefcase, and they can listen to whatever radio program they want. People will get their radio on the internet. The manager of the radio station laughed at me and said that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard of, and that was impossible, that would never happen. Well, of course, it did happen, and it has happened, and now many people predict that the traditional radio station, as we now know it, will probably be gone in 5 to 7 years. It'll still be somewhat around in some places, but for the most part, people will be listening to their smartphone, listening to their iPad, listening to their smart speaker. You'll even get into your car, and if you have a recent model car, and they'll all be this way. You can get in your car, press the button, and say, Alexa, I want to hear Stan Houston's Interesting Ideas podcast. Bingo. It'll be right there. And you can listen to my podcast anywhere, anytime you want, wherever you are. That's what has happened. And now you have the opportunity to be one of those people who can be on the radio. You already know that there are hundreds, thousands, millions of people. Even, in fact, many of the people you see on television also, and they already have 1 million people watching them on television, they then have their own little podcasts where they themselves can be fully in charge of the program, getting the guests they want, talking about what they want to talk about, playing the music they want to play, and that's the world as it is now. And it's only going to get bigger, it's going to get better. It will get better if better people like you get involved. And that's what I want to help people do. My radio program station is called, my business is called What It Takes Radio, witradio.net. And I'm giving the rest of my life as best I can to helping people like you. You don't have to be professionals. You don't have to have gone to broadcasting school like I did. You don't have to be a hotshot performer. You, by learning some basic skills and some basic ideas, can have your own radio program. You can have literally your own radio station, and you can reach the world. Back many years ago when I got involved in radio, it was a 500,000 watt transmitter that broadcast millions of watts into the air through 7 big towers, and it went to parts of all the world. It cost thousands of dollars every night to operate it. I can now do the same thing very easily from this little studio here in North Carolina, and for a few dollars, I can reach far more people than I ever reached on that big, powerful radio station. That's the world of podcasting. Now, I'm going to invite you into that world. I will tell you this, even if you don't get involved in podcasting, I sometimes use this example. One time I decided I thought I might want to learn how to play golf. So I tried to learn how to play golf, bought some inexpensive clubs, gave it a try, and decided, I really don't want to do this anymore. But you know what? Even in the couple of years that I tried it, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the game. I learned even more about life. And so it was worthwhile. What I'm telling you is, even if you take this course and then decide that you don't want to be a podcaster, you don't want to do it. You know about it, you understand it, you might even want to be a guest on other people's podcasts, but you will decide, hey, no, this isn't for me. You will still learn a great deal about life, business. You will learn more about yourself, and you'll learn how to be a world-class podcaster and be a communicator. You will begin to have more income. Now, will you make money? Probably not at first, but you can. And we'll talk about ways you can make money later on. But don't get involved to make money. Get involved because you have some wisdom and you have some insights, you have some truth, you have some stories, and you want to share them with others, and you want to meet and help people. If that's what you want to do, you're ready to start. The rest of the good stuff will follow. But what you have to do now is to make the decision that you want to learn more about podcasting, and then you want to give it a try. And we'll teach you everything you need to know to not only give it a try, get started, and how to become world class. That's what we do. And I guarantee you, we do it well. And we want to do it well for you. So, end of lesson 1. End of the episode. I hope you will come back for lesson 2, and I'll tease you. This is called a teaser in radio. You're going to have to meet another person. You're going to have to meet a person that's very important, that you get to know this person. And that will help you do well as a world-class podcaster. So that's coming up on lesson 2. Now, I would like you to do just what I did. Write to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com, and tell me your story. Just as I told you my story and why I want to be on the radio, tell me your story and why you want to be on the radio. What are you hoping to achieve? What do you want? Tell me about you and your story and what you're hoping this little episode in learning, this little radio production class, this Be a Podcaster class, what do you want it to achieve for you? Let me know, and as you do that, then I can begin to make sure I include all of the things you need in this class, and then after the class, we'll have ongoing presentations to help you not only learn how to do it, but how to get better and better. Maybe go from good to great as a worldwide radio podcaster. That's what I hope will happen for you. So again, reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. All the best and blessings to you now, and get ready for lesson 2. Please reach out to me, Stan Houston, at stan@witradio.net. Witradio.net is our website, and 520-664-7002 USA.